Moving on. Mine's going to be a bit longer. This whole incident, as you heard, stems from an incident at Boca Bash. Boca Bash is known commonly as the 3 Bs: boating, booze, and bikinis. And while all 3 of those contributed to this unfortunate event, it's primarily the third one, the bikini worn by Mrs. Schwitzsky, a red G-string bikini, that contributed mostly to this event. You're going to hear that Mrs. Schwitzsky referred to Cole as a quiet, sweet boy. That's what she believed he was. And this quiet, sweet boy is somebody that she took advantage of, and that's what brought us here. She's motivated by a number of things, and the evidence will prove that. You're going to hear, Cole's going to take the stand, and you're going to hear that he was 23 years old at the time of the incident. He lived with his parents, his brother and his sister, in Broken Sound, which is a pretty affluent area in Boca Raton. He comes from a family of lawyers. His grandfather, his uncle, his father. Cole himself had plans on going to law school. He graduated from FSU in 2021, and during the summer of 2021, he actually had registered for the LSATs, and that was his plan. During the summer of 2021 is when he met Caroline Schwitzsky. Caroline was in her 30s at the time with 3 children. And this woman unfortunately destroyed his life and brought us to why we are here today. The evidence is going to show, as I said a moment ago, that this entire unfortunate event is motivated by a number of things. These reasons include money, using Cole, promoting herself with the media before and after this incident, seeking fame after the incident, and also avoiding prison or jail for her own legal problems that she was facing at the time for a violation of probation that was pending at the time of this incident. You're going to hear that during the summer of 2021, Cole met Ms. Schwitzsky at the Dreyer nightclub at the Hard Rock down in Broward County. You're going to hear that Mrs. Schwitzsky lived in Miramar at the time with her children. She claims to be the founder of an alleged talent agency where she handles castings and bookings for any number of types of folks. She describes herself all over social media as being the former Queen of Miami, an actress, a producer, a motivational speaker, a model, someone who's acted in multiple TV series, including Burn Notice, and was a big star on 90 Day Fiancé. She's produced or been involved in music videos before and after the incident. And again, all over her social media, she sees herself as an influence. She basically promotes herself for attention. And that is in large part what this case is about. She has 86,000 followers on Instagram, where she also says that she's a host and a performer and a dancer. After this incident occurred, she posted on social media a number of interesting posts. One of them was, "I love putting on a show for the camera." That was on July 25th of 2022. On August 5th of 2022, she shaved her head to copy Doja Cat, and she posted that she was reborn after she died in the waters on April 24th of 2022. She was paid $20,000 for that incident. In one of her bios posted online, she posted, "Always be in the spotlight." When these two met in the summer of 2021, it was very clear that this was going to be a summer fling. He's a young boy, young man, going off to law school. She's a very attractive woman, a model, an actress. They met, and it was very clear that that was his intent. He did care for her, I'm not saying he didn't, but it was just going to be something that was going to be short-lived. This wasn't a woman that he wanted to marry. They dated, they would see each other a couple times a week. At that time, Mrs. Schwitzsky was employed as a dispatcher for a trucking company. Upon meeting Cole, she very quickly lost that job or quit that job. She told him that she didn't like the 9-to-5 lifestyle. And the evidence is going to show that she became increasingly more dependent upon him financially. He was working part-time at the Hard Rock during that time, just making a little bit of money before he was going off to law school. They took their relationship day by day. Very quickly, Mrs. Schwitzsky started talking about marriage. She wanted to have a kid with Cole. She was trying to latch on to this kid. She saw the wealth, she saw the affluence. She wanted to marry him. He wanted no part of that, but he still cared about her. She kept begging and begging, and he would just basically blow her off, but keep the relationship going, but at an arm's length. The evidence is going to show that Ms. Schwitzsky was well aware of Cole and his family's position. She stayed at their home in Broken Sound a number of evenings. You're also going to hear that Cole would go down to Miramar and spend time with Caroline and her children. Shortly into the relationship, the evidence is going to show that he was taking her kids to school. He's giving them money for grocery. He's paying her rent. He's giving her money for all sorts of things, including $2,000 for a car repair when she got into a car crash shortly before this incident. She ridiculed him openly for not being a man, for taking care of her family. A kid, 22, 23 years old, that he had just met a few months before. Bottom line is, this was her meal ticket. That's what she saw in him, and that's all he was. The evidence is going to show that on April 18th of 2022, 6 days before the incident, Mrs. Schwitzsky was in a car crash. She struck a tree, and she didn't wait around. She left the scene, and the evidence is going to show that as a result of that car crash, she sustained some minor injuries, bruising to her arms and legs. She asked Cole for $2,000 to repair that car, and he took his student loan money and gave her that money to do that. She's going to allude or suggest to this court that those bruisings, those injuries on her arms and legs occurred at the hands of Cole on April 24th at Boca Bash. And you're going to hear that law enforcement, and as Ms. Suarez indicated, a perhaps not well-equipped law enforcement agency to handle this type of case, very quickly jumped to the conclusion that these bruises that are clearly old and you can tell they're not fresh were done at the hands of Cole Goldberg. That's not the case. You're going to hear that Cole's parents were not thrilled with the relationship either. They kept pressing for a baby and marriage, and his family knew that that was not what was in his best interest. Caroline kept insisting that her 3 children call Cole's mother grandma, somebody that only knew them a short time, months. The relationship was all about money, and still is, Your Honor. Boca Bash has been around since the early 2000s. It's held every April on Lake Boca. It's a little bit of a misnomer. It's not really a lake, but it's like a quasi-lake. It draws thousands and thousands of people and boaters from all over. It's a huge party on the water, basically. Loud music, professional DJs, super yachts, sponsor yachts, serving alcohol, giving away free shots, boats, yachts of all kinds. It draws huge crowds, and it's all about booze, boating, bikinis, and partying. As Ms. Suarez indicated, police come from all over the state to help out because it just requires a lot of police authority attention to help out. There's a lot of BUIs, as Your Honor can imagine. FWC has a large presence there. You're going to hear that Lake Boca is shallow in some areas. It's basically knee-deep near the sandbar. Sandbar sort of in the middle, and it's a place where people tie up their boats, they anchor there, and then they get off and they party on the sandbar. It's usually about knee-deep. But you're going to hear that outside the periphery of the sandbar, the waters of Lake Boca are extremely deep. There's a rough current. The tides are strong. And that's where a couple of these boats, including Alex Tracharchek, I can't pronounce the names, I'm just going to call it Alex, The boat with the 4 individuals was anchored, along with the other boat that Ms. Forrest told you about, with the group of 6 men. They were anchored in the deeper water. You're going to hear that on the day, on the 24th, that Caroline had spent the night, Mrs. Schwitzsky, the night before at Cole's parents' home. They got up early, they had a bagel, and then they ran a couple of errands to Walgreens Publix. They bought a couple of cases of seltzers, they bought a couple of bottles of champagne, and they headed over to East Boca, onto the Intercoastal around 8:30 or 9 o'clock to meet Cole's very good friend, Sebastian Espinoza. Sebastian's father is a neurologist and owns a boat that he keeps right there on the Intercoastal. And it was the plan that Dr. Espinoza was going to take Cole and a large group of people to Boca Bash. You're going to hear that there was about 14 people on the boat, several young girls, between the age teenagers, 16 to 18, 21 years old, and a couple of Cole's friends. They arrived at Boca Bash around 9:30 in the morning. Because they got there so early, Dr. Espinoza was able to find one of the prime spots near the sandbar and was able to anchor there. As soon as they got to the sandbar, that's when the party began. You're going to hear that Cole and Mrs. Schwitzsky began drinking around 10 o'clock. There were mimosas, tequila shots, seltzers. Everybody was drinking, not just these two. They were dancing, music was blasting, in the sun all day, basically dehydrated, not drinking water, not taking good care of themselves. You're going to hear that Cole sustained a knee injury. You may see some photos of that. All of them were boat hopping. Boats are tied up. They're jumping back and forth. That's how he hurt his knee. You're going to hear around 12 o'clock, a couple hours after that they arrived there, they went to one of the big super or mega yachts, sponsor boat. They drank there, they were partying, dancing, they stayed there for a couple of hours, and around 2 o'clock, Cole and Mrs. Schwitzsky went back to Dr. Espinoza's boat. You're going to hear that Dr. Espinoza and everyone that was on that boat decided to call it a day, and they said they're leaving. Mrs. Schwitzsky didn't want to leave. She was having a good time, and she persuaded Cole to stay. So everyone took off except for Cole and Mrs. Schwitzsky. They were walking around after Dr. Espinoza had left, and Cole saw one of his friends, Michael, who had offered to bring him onto another boat that was being operated by a Captain Doobie. That boat, Captain Doobie's boat, was tied up to Cole's friend's Anthony's boat. And you're going to hear that everyone was basically hopping back and forth between these two boats. Again, as I said earlier, both Doobie and Anthony's boat were in deep water, not near the sandbar, and these waters were quite rough. You're going to hear that around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, that Cole and Caroline, Mrs. Schwitzsky, decided to go back to that mega yacht that I told you about earlier, that sponsor boat, the vodka boat. They paddleboarded over there, they hung out there for a bit. You're going to hear that Mrs. Schwitzsky decided that she was going to jump on the trampoline that was tied off this mega yacht, it's a 2-story big boat. And there's a trampoline on the back of it. You're going to hear that there were a bunch of young women back there on the trampoline bouncing around, and she decided she was going to do that as well. You're going to hear that while she was on the trampoline, Cole went over to a cooler that was on the further from the trampoline on the other side of the boat. Ms. Schwitzsky asked him for a seltzer, was motioning for him to get one for her. He reached into the cooler, started walking over to that direction, and in an underhanded toss, threw her a seltzer. She missed, it slipped through her hands. She was never struck in the face or the eye with the seltzer, and Your Honor will see photos of no injuries to her eye or to her face. May I approach a little closer? Of there being a hard toss of a can striking her in her eye or her face or her head. You're going to hear that eventually they decided to leave the vodka boat. Miss Schwitzsky decided she was going to leave and swim back to the other boats, the Doobie and the Anthony boat. And Cole followed on a paddleboard. They went to Doobie's boat quickly, then they hopped onto Anthony's boat, and everything was fine. There was no arguing, they were having a good time. It was just another day. You're going to hear, though, when they got back to Anthony's boat, that's when something happened. And this, again, is related to, in part, the bikini. When they got to Anthony's boat, you're going to hear that some drunk guy came up to Mrs. Schwitzsky and slapped her on her behind. And she became enraged at that. She became upset with the guy, the drunk guy, but she became more enraged with Cole because her sweet, quiet boy didn't go after this drunk guy and beat him up. And that enraged her. This guy disrespected her. Cole disrespected her by not doing anything to protect her. And that's what set this off. Cole was never angry at her. She became enraged at him. Cole actually stood in between the drunk guy and Mrs. Schwitzsky and extended his arms to break it up. Not that they were fighting, but they were heading towards each other. And to divide them, and even just by getting in the middle of them, you're going to hear that the guy fell down. That's how drunk he was. She was still enraged. She was upset, disrespected her. They left and they went back to Doobie's boat. When they got back to Doobie's boat, you're going to hear that they were sitting there on the back of the boat, the front of the boat, I can't recall which it was, and you're going to hear from Cole that he had Mrs. Schwitzsky on his lap trying to calm her down. She was upset. There was nothing going on there that would indicate that he was being aggressive towards her or doing anything inappropriate other than trying to calm her down. They were there for about 20 or 30 minutes, and eventually she did in fact calm down a bit. It was at that point you're going to hear that Captain Doobie said he's leaving. We're untiring and we're getting out of here. He said, I don't have enough life jackets for Cole and Caroline. Because as you recall, they just came onto that boat. They weren't part of that crew. They hadn't come with Captain Doobie. And you'll hear that there are very strict rules at Boca Bash and Lake Boca that every boat out there has to have enough life jackets for each passenger on the boat. If not, they get hit with a huge fine. So they take it very seriously. And he kicked them off the boat. Caroline jumped into the water at that point, off of Captain Doobie's boat. She had her cell phone in hand. She decides that she's going to swim to land. You can't swim to land. She was swimming in a direction that was headed towards a channel out into the ocean. She would have been killed. She would have drowned. So what Cole did is he jumps off the boat and starts swimming after her. He didn't want her to get hurt. Captain Doobie tells Cole, you have 30 seconds to go get her. Go get her. I just found 2 more life jackets. Come back and I'll let you guys leave with me. Cole leaves his backpack on the boat. He jumps in to swim and he starts swimming after Mrs. Schwitzsky. As I told you earlier, the water's deep. The current's strong. They're rough. He's swimming fast because he has 30 seconds to get back to Doobie because he's taking off and they have no way home. Espinosa left, their other friends left, they're stuck. He's swimming fast. He's halfway through, he's exhausted. He starts to panic. He feels like he's sinking. The water's going into his mouth. He starts fearing for his safety. He believes he's going to drown. Caroline was also having trouble swimming. She was distressed as well, not just Cole, both of them were. Boaters from Alex's boat gave Caroline a flotation device, I believe it was a round device, when she made it to the boat so that she could gain composure. When Cole got to Caroline, he couldn't breathe. He'll tell you he was seeing stars, he was lightheaded, he was in distress. He saw Caroline's shoulders sticking out of the water where she was hanging onto the floaty. And as a natural instinct, in his panicked state, he grabbed onto her shoulder, he believes with one hand. He doesn't even believe that she went under the water. He did that not with the intention to batter her, but to save himself from drowning. He honestly thought he was going down. He was nowhere near her neck. He hooked onto the shoulder. You're going to see this photo, Mrs. Schwitzsky, taken within minutes of the alleged attempted murder. No injuries on her neck whatsoever, no bruising, no marks, no chokehold, nothing. You're going to see, after Mrs. Schwitzsky was taken to the dock, which wasn't that much longer either, I don't know the exact time, maybe an hour. Absolutely no injuries to her neck, or her chest, or her face. Her big hoop earrings are still intact after she was allegedly choked and strangled under the water, and he tried to kill her. The state's theory is that Cole intentionally tried to kill Caroline Schwitzsky in front of a boat full of people. This makes absolutely no sense. Tried to kill her right in front of everybody. All he was trying to do was save his life. He felt like he was drowning, and that's why he reached onto her shoulder. You're going to hear that when Caroline was pulled up onto the boat or got on the boat, she wasn't crying. There was no CPR. She wasn't choking. She wasn't spitting up water. Her hair appears to be dry from these photos. This is minutes of when the alleged attempted murder, choking her, pushing her under the water occurred. Her hair doesn't even look wet. She's still holding on to her cell phone. She had her cell phone when she jumped off the boat. She had the cell phone in her hand when she swam. She had the cell phone on her when he was trying to strangle her to death and kill her. And rather than take her hand and drop her cell phone and try to get his hands off her neck to save her life, she's holding onto her cell phone. She gets on the boat with her cell phone. It's still in hand. When she gets on the boat, not a single person there calls 911. If anyone had believed that he was trying to kill her, they would have. She tells the people on the boat, right after her attempted murder, that Cole is a good kid, and he's going to law school. He's my boyfriend. And we know she tells him this because all the people on the boat talk about that later. Meantime, Cole is hanging onto the boat, trying to gain composure. Water's too deep, he can't stand there. He's confused. He doesn't know what's going on. They're treating him like something's happening and he doesn't know why they're doing this to him. You're going to hear that Alex, the owner of that boat, picks up a long metal gaff, a long pole. I'm not sure what it's used for, something with fishing. And he goes over to Cole in a threatening manner. And he's pointing at him and telling him, "You're not coming on this boat. Get away, get away." He has nowhere to go. He's being basically attacked with this, didn't touch him, but he's being assaulted with this long metal gaff and told, "You can't stay here, you better leave." So he turns around and he starts heading back to Captain Doobie's boat. At this point, Captain Doobie's boat is no longer as far away as it was when he jumped off of it. It's now it's much, much closer. It's about 10 to 15 yards away. Captain Doobie was waiting there for Cole and Caroline, who never came back. He swam back to Doobie's boat. They helped him up, and Doobie told him he was leaving, and Cole said he was not leaving without his girlfriend. Captain Doobie then brought him closer to the sandbar, let Cole out. He got out. He stayed there for about 10 to 15 minutes to gain his composure, gain more strength, and he swam back to Alex's boat a second time with his backpack on his back. He was going back to get Caroline. He wasn't leaving his girlfriend with these strangers. He had no clue who they were. You're going to hear from Cole that backpack filled with air and was able to sort of act like a flotation device and helped him also with his swimming to get back to the boat the second time. When he got back a second time, he was hanging on the ledge, and you're going to hear that Caroline was kneeling down at the edge the second time that he came back, comforting him, holding his hand, reaching him. She wasn't crying. She wasn't running behind any of the witnesses on the boat to hide from this alleged killer. She didn't even accuse him of killing her. She's acting tender and sweet and concerned that he's in the boat and unable to help himself. So what happened here? You have 4 people on a boat who jump to the wrong conclusion. They're drinking alcohol. They see somebody come up, they see somebody reach for a shoulder, she went down partially, and they think that he's trying to kill her. They saw something that they thought they saw, but they weren't right. They all believed that by grabbing her shoulder, that he was trying to drown her and intentionally kill her. You're going to hear that Alex was in part what caused this. He was extremely aggressive. You're going to hear that he immediately started pointing his finger at Cole, and his words, "You're an attempted murderer, you're an attempted murderer," in front of the other witnesses. You're going to hear that when FWC pulled up with their boats moments later, he's flagging them down. Nobody called 911, he's flagging them down. And immediately Alex starts telling the cops what happened there. He's setting the stage. He's telling them how to conduct their investigation. He's telling them he committed attempted murder. He planted that seed in the lead officer's head. He's basically controlling it. Not a single officer there had any experience conducting any types of violent cases, never handled a strangulation case, an attempted murder case, never handled a violent crime. They're worried about fishing violations and BUIs. And unfortunately, they were out of their league. And you have this man, Alex, telling the officer what had happened and that he committed attempted murder. The whole investigation took 24 minutes from the time FWC arrived there to when, well, he was detained and cuffed well before that, but 24 minutes to conduct an investigation, interview witnesses, look for evidence, everything they had to do before he was accused and arrested for attempted murder of Mrs. Schwitzsky. You're going to hear that Hudson never looked for videos, he never spoke with anybody on the mega yacht, he never spoke with anybody on Doobie's, or never bothered to get phone numbers. If they had left already, he could have gotten phone numbers. He never spoke with anybody on Anthony's boat. He never looked for independent witnesses. Your Honor is going to hear that there were other boats in the immediate area of where this all occurred. And the only boat that he found worthy to interview, I'll refer to as the Hernandez boat, the boat with 6 men. Interestingly, it was Alex who directed Officer Hudson to that boat. He said, they saw it too, go speak to them. He didn't go to anybody else, only to what Alex thought was important. You're going to hear that FWC, Officer Hudson, went to Hernandez's boat. There were 6 men on that boat. You're going to hear that he immediately brings up attempted murder. You're going to hear he set the stage in those guys' head. He immediately tells them, what if this were your daughter? Because they don't want to really get involved. He says, what if this were your daughter? and basically encourages them to write statements. He doesn't separate them. They're all sitting around like they're kibbutzing, and they're writing statements and sharing pens, and they're all talking about what they saw amongst each other. And he had already planted the seed that this was an attempted murder. He takes the statements from 3 of the men. He doesn't bother taking statements from the other ones. He doesn't even get the names of the other witnesses. He doesn't check if they have video. He doesn't even ask if they have video. He doesn't check any of the boats if they have video. You're going to hear that all of these people on the Hernandez boat and on the Alex boat all give varying accounts. And while I certainly understand that perceptions can differ, especially when you're having alcohol and under these circumstances, there's certain parts of their statements that are critical, and on those material issues, that they vary. And you're going to hear that Matthew Paris, who's going to testify here today, I believe, said that they being the 4 people on the Alex boat, they had all been drinking alcohol, they were making margaritas, rum and tequila, and that he had actually noticed Mrs. Schwitzsky earlier in the day. He noted her red G-string bikini earlier in the day. He was watching the quote-unquote, his word, debauchery of her and the other girls on the nearby boat. He saw her dancing. He noticed her red bikini. She was nice looking. He noticed several nice looking girls and was peeking over, hoping his wife wouldn't catch him doing so. When Caroline arrived, he's going to tell you that she was in fact distressed. She had labored breathing, and he gave her a floaty. He said in his sworn deposition that Cole came up and strangled her. In the same sworn statement, Mr. Paris later said, it could have been that Cole was just pushing her down on her. He did not see Cole choking her above the water. In the same sworn statement, he said that he saw above water Cole's hands over her shoulders with his fingers pointed forward, and he did not see Cole choking her. One time he said he saw marks on her neck, another time he said he did not. Sherry Paris is Matt's ex-wife. They are now divorced. She said no one was drinking. She said that she saw Cole swim up in front of Caroline, and he put his hands were pushing her down. His hands were around her neck and was pushing her down. In the same sworn statement, she changed her story, and she said he used both hands and pushed her down on her shoulder, on her clavicle. And then she said she never saw she never saw Caroline being choked. Alex says that they were drinking. He was drinking alcohol on his boat while taking 20 different medications. There were liquor bottles on his boat, seltzers and beers. He saw Caroline. He saw Cole come up behind her and reach around and grab her neck with both hands, and he pushed her with all of his weight under the water, causing the flotation device to fly out. And he describes Cole, interestingly, as not being in distress, having a crazed look. He told police later that he didn't want to cooperate with law enforcement. He wanted nothing to do with this case. He was concerned that his name was going to be in the newspaper. He didn't want to cooperate because, according to him, what he told the cops on the boat is she had no interest in doing anything. She was saying nothing happened. She wasn't a victim. This was her boyfriend. He's a good guy. So why on earth would they want to be involved? That's when Hudson started with the, what if this were your daughter? And again, all the people on that boat were sitting together. They weren't separated. He's giving them paper, and they're sharing pens, and they're all talking about what happened together. Alex's wife, Rachel, she's going to tell you there was no beer and no liquor on the boat. She was drinking wine. You're going to see photos where there was clearly alcohol bottles, rum, tequila, a blender. There was clearly alcohol on that boat. She said that she saw Cole and offered him a floaty because it looked like he was having a hard time swimming. He was laboring, to use her word. She saw Cole push Caroline down on the shoulders, not the neck, and hold her underwater. The other boat, Your Honor, the Hernandez boat, I believe the state's calling 2 witnesses, Anthony Bullen and Lloyd Whiting. Anthony Bullen is going to tell you that he and his boat full of people have been drinking. You can actually, there may be photos where they're drinking beers. He's going to tell you that the waters were very rough. There was a lot of current. He saw Caroline and Cole arguing earlier in the day. And he saw Cole trying to stop or prevent Caroline from jumping off the boat, the doobie boat. That he jumped in after her. He did not see Cole choke Caroline. He did not see Cole strangle Caroline. Cole did not use 2 hands around her neck. Cole did not grab her shoulders to drown her. Cole did not cover her mouth to cut off oxygen. What he saw was Cole push Caroline's head down in the water with 1 hand up and 1 hand on her. 1 hand was in the air. He also did not call 911. None of these people did. Lloyd Whiting is going to admit and tell you that he was also drinking beer. He was on the Hernandez boat, one of the 6. He also saw Caroline jump off the boat. He saw that Cole was trying to stop her from jumping off the boat. He was not pushed off the boat, as she's likely to tell you. He saw the same thing that the other witness saw, that Cole put his hand on Caroline's shoulder and had 1 hand up in the air. He also did not call 911. Your Honor, Cole is going to take the stand, as I told you. He's going to tell you that basically everything that I just told you, that he was exhausted, he was drowning, he felt the need to grab a shoulder that was sticking out of the water for no other reason. It wasn't a sinister reason to kill her, but to just give himself some place to grab so that he wouldn't drown. He also told this to police. You're going to hear from several of Cole's friends, one of who was there, Anthony Mimo. You're going to hear that he and Cole are very good friends. He was there. He saw Caroline and Cole throughout the day. They were happy. There was no fighting. There was nothing going on until that incident with the drunk who slapped her tush, her backside, her bottom. That was exposed with her G-string bikini. So you got this drunk guy going up slapping her. He witnessed that. He saw that Caroline was upset. He saw that Caroline was upset not only at the drunk guy, but more at him for not jumping in and protecting her and beating the guy up because that was disrespectful to this woman. And how dare he do that? He will testify that he saw Cole trying to calm her down, trying hard. He's also going to testify that he heard Captain Doobie say that there weren't enough life jackets for the 2 of them and that they were kicked off the boat. You're going to hear Anthony Nemo say that Cole, who he's known a long time, has a reputation for being peaceful and is non-violent. You're going to hear from Fabrizio Valenzuela, a good friend of Cole's, knows him well. He was on the boat with Cole and Caroline, said there was absolutely no issues. These 2 were fine. They were happy. Everyone was drinking, including Caroline and Cole, but there were no issues. He's going to tell you that Cole, who he's known quite some time, has a reputation for being peaceful and nonviolent. You're going to hear from Stephen Polino, close friend of Cole, knows him very well. Saw Cole and Caroline on a paddle boat. Later in the afternoon, they were happy. There were absolutely no issues. That Cole has a reputation for being peaceful, non-violent person. Sebastian Espinoza, also good friends with Cole, knows Ms. Schwitzsky. Everyone was drinking, including Cole and Caroline, but there were no issues, no arguments that he was aware of, and he's going to tell you he has a reputation for being peaceful and non-violent. You're going to hear from Angela Rada, Cole's ex-girlfriend. They dated for many years. In high school, 4 years. She went off to FSU. They basically separated during college. To this day, they are still very good friends, and she will tell you that he has never been violent and he has a reputation for being peaceful. Your Honor, we're going to call an expert, Dr. Steve Leatherman. He's a professor at FIU. He's an expert witness in drowning cases. He has testified many times in civil cases. His PhD thesis was in riptides. He's going to talk about the 6 stages of drowning, one of them being distress, where you're struggling to keep your airways open, and that everyone has an instinctive drowning response when you start to trying to keep your airways open, you lose control, you start panicking, you're not thinking rationally, you can't hear people, you can't respond the way a normal person would respond. He's going to talk about something called climbing the ladder effect, that if you see something sticking out of the water, something you can grab onto to gain leverage, you're going to push down on that imaginary ladder in order to gain control to prevent yourself from drowning. He's going to tell you that once you're in that stage of drowning, within 20 to 60 seconds, you're going to go under unless you can actually grab onto something and gain composure. And that timing depends on how physically fit you are. But in order to survive, you have to gain some sort of leverage. He's going to tell you that the instinctive drowning response is to grab. Mrs. Schwitzsky, as I said a little bit earlier, when she got on Alex's boat, she said it to him, to everybody there, he's a good boy, he's going to law school, he's my boyfriend. She told all the officers there, he never touched me that day. She told officers, he never laid a hand on me in the 9 months that we're together. She stayed by his side and comforted him. She denied repeatedly to law enforcement, on the boat, back at the dock, that he tried to kill her or drown her. In fact, when she was told that he was being arrested, she was shocked. She gasped for air, later put her hand over her mouth, said, "No, never." For what? That was her response. She has absolutely no injuries on her neck or anywhere. The old bruises are from the car crash. Everyone was giving Caroline the attention and creating a narrative of an attempted murder. That simply was not the case. And again, I think this was due in part to Alex and the way he initially handled it with law enforcement. Caroline, you're going to hear, Your Honor, is an opportunist. She saw a way to run with the story, but didn't do it until later in the day. And the reason she did it is because she had more to gain by creating this narrative. You're going to hear that she was on felony probation for a violent crime. At the time of the incident, she was on probation for an arrest out of Miami for a resisting officer with violence, a third-degree felony. She was placed on probation and reporting in Broward, where she lived. On March 25th, about a month or so before the incident, there was a violation of probation affidavit that was filed by her PO. An arrest warrant was signed for the violation. And on April 24th, 2022, the day of the incident, after she was taken off of Alex's boat, and after some time talking with law enforcement on dock, she was arrested for that outstanding warrant. She tried to get out of it. She was telling FWC officers, she has kids, please don't do this to me. This is all one big mistake. And it was after that that she seized the opportunity and became a victim of an attempted murder. After her arrest, and while this case was pending, she did not go to jail for the VOP. She did not go to prison for the VOP. Her probation was modified on May 5th of 2022. You're going to hear that there was a second violation of probation on December 1st of 2022. Again, no jail, no prison. Probation is modified, she's on probation. She maintained her withhold. She violated her probation by drinking alcohol at Boca Bash on April 24th of 2022. Nothing happened. She violated her probation by leaving Broward County on April 24th and going to Palm Beach County to attend a party and drink alcohol. Nothing happened. She avoided penalties other defendants would have not, just because she feigned being a victim and had an open case. The state ignored these violations and gave her multiple benefits for being a victim. Carolyn turned this incident into a way to benefit in other ways, financially. Buy my way out of jail card. Stay relevant in her shallow media world, which is all she really has. She's an influencer, a model, an actress. It's all about promoting herself. And to remain relevant, that's what she has to do. Post. She gave stories to TMZ, People Magazine, New York Post, NBC. She took clips from all of these articles and posted it on her Instagram account, posting to her 86,000 followers about her attempted murderer and how she was almost killed. She went on the comedy circuit in Miami and did a joke about being the victim of an attempted murder by a young man. Always the actress, she created this fantastical tale. This incident has kept her relevant and has made her money. You're going to hear that about 6 months or so after the incident, she filed a civil lawsuit here in Palm Beach County, seeking monetary damages from Cole. That lawsuit is basically on hold pending the outcome of this case. She stands to collect tens of thousands of dollars. She has a very strong financial motive to lie about what happened. She has a financial interest to see that he is convicted. You're going to hear that 3 days after the incident, she filed an injunction down in Broward County for dating violence. And in that petition for injunction, she talks about what happened on the boat, how he tried to kill her, talks about how he hit her in the eye and the face with the seltzer can, but also, interestingly, she now talks about being sexually molested by him that day as he put his fingers and his fingernails into her vagina and almost ripped it apart. Now she was sexually molested as well. She asked for a final hearing. She got one on May 9th of 2022, but she never showed up and it was dismissed. The evidence is going to show that she is a master of manipulation. She seized an opportunity at an expense of a young man, took his whole life from him. He didn't intentionally batter her, he didn't intentionally strangle her, he didn't intentionally choke her, and he certainly did not try to kill her. And the evidence will show that. Thank you.